comme si on avait un public.
Énorme public. Hello, welcome. Thank you for connecting tonight to our series of French-American histories that we're organizing at the French Embassy tonight on Lafayette. So we're going to talk about a lot of different subjects on Lafayette and Lafayette's legacy with Vincent Bouat-Ferlier. And so French-American Histories overall is a series that will focus on French-American stories, which means French-American history from different angles, from different periods, but it's really to focus on the exchanges between France and America and how that still shapes our world today. And so today we're going to talk about, of course, as I said, Lafayette, because we're in the middle of the celebrations of the 200 years of the farewell tour of the Marquis de Lafayette, which means that, of course, he had traveled in 1824 through the different American states to commemorate his role in the American Revolution. And so that is celebrated in 2024 right now all over the United States and in 24 different states and beyond that. And so that's why we chose tonight to have a subject, of course, on Lafayette, the Marquis de Lafayette. And so tonight we're mainly going to focus on the Fondation Chambrun. The Fondation Chambrun is also called the Lafayette Fondation Chambrun. And so it's dedicated to preserving, but also restoring and maintaining General Lafayette's château, but which is called the Château de la Grange. Its mission also includes to catalog the general's and his family's archives, expanding and promoting them, and more broadly, sharing Lafayette's life, personality, and ideas, particularly his lifelong commitment to the defense of democratic ideals. And so the Château de la Grange was inherited by Lafayette's wife, Adrienne de Noailles, and so it became the family's residence in 1799. So before that, of course, Lafayette has lived at other locations, but from 1799, he will live in the Château de la Grange, and of course, up until the end of his life in 1834. And so then his daughter Virginie and her husband, the Marquis de Lafayette, they took over the estate, and then it remained in the family for 3 generations. And then in 1935, Louis de Lafayette passed it on to his cousin, René de Chambrun. Hence the name, of course, the Fondation Chambrun. And Chambrun was also a direct descendant of Lafayette. Of course, Vincent will tell much more about that, but I wanted to already put some context to this Fondation Chambrun and why they have Lafayette's papers. And so today, the foundation is open to of course, receiving public in the chateau in smaller numbers, but also they have a very beautiful website on which you can see different resources. And for researchers, there's a lot of archives that have now been digitized, which will be something we discuss, of course, but it is a very exciting collection because it's all these papers of Lafayette, his life, the things he preserved from all his different periods of his own lifetime, of course. And in particularly for me, this is also very exciting because I've been studying the French in the American Revolution a lot, of course. And so I'm specialized in the French-American relations of the 18th century, and in particularly about Lafayette's uncle, François-Jean de Château, who was one of the generals in the campaign where Lafayette fought as well in Yorktown. And so I've studied many, many, many archives for that. So I'm very excited to talk to someone about archives because that's, of course, the core of historians' jobs. So I'm very happy to welcome the director of the Fondation Chambrun, Vincent Bouat-Ferlier. And so Vincent joined the foundation in December of 2022 after serving as the scientific director at the Musée National de la Marine, which is the Navy Museum in Paris. Beautiful museum, by the way, as well, obviously. But La Grange is better. I don't know. Anyway, and so he's an alumnus of the École Nationale des Chartres and graduate of the Institut National du Patrimoine and University Paris 1 Sorbonne, so the University of Sorbonne that a lot of people know in the US. So then he also previously worked for the French National Archives and Ministry of Culture. So you have an impressive CV, and we're very excited to have you today to talk about Lafayette, his legacy, and especially what you do to preserve that legacy. And we will, of course, end by explaining to those listening to this how to go there, because that's what everyone will want after. So to start with this, we will focus first on Lafayette himself, his main glorious deeds, let's say, the things we have to remember him for and why that's relevant. And then we'll move towards the foundation, but also to the castle and its archive. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
And also Vincent is here, of course, for a whole week to do a lot of Lafayette events, because we're in the middle of the 200th anniversary of the farewell tour.
What a week.
Yeah. We'll be very tired at the end,
but happy.
Yeah. So for you, why is it important to remember the Marquis de Lafayette? And what personally inspires you to dedicate a lot of your time to that?
Well, personally, I'm really impressed by the constance of Lafayette and his loyalty. I think Lafayette was always very loyal to the idea of protecting and diffusing the notion of liberty, collective and individual freedom. And it's really amazing to see that from his first fights with the Patriots during the American Independence War until his death, he knew a lot of changement, he saw a lot of governments, but he still remained loyal to his first love, that loyalty, that liberty is. And I think nowadays, in a period that shows us sometimes some instability, when we can see people changing their mind and their opinions like the wind, it's really important to have this stone, this symbol, and to know and to have conscious of that importance Lafayette put in defending this notion.
That is very important indeed. And it's true that the Marquis de Lafayette is often, of course, remembered for his role in the American Revolution, which greatly inspired him. But of course, he was already inspired by these ideals before he left. But then when he came here, he was, of course, really diving into all these different principles, talking to its main architects that have written the famous words, and of course fought for it himself. So can you talk us a bit, tell us a bit more about his key role in the American Revolution? And then also, just because we have slides, of course, and so the slides, we can see them a bit further. So sometimes we'll look over there. But so the slides will show us an evolution of the man. So you can see him young towards older, and these are all in your collection. So what we're going to do today in this interview is referring to a few of the items in the collection of the Fondation Chambrun, also for you to see how varied the collection is and how rich that collection is. So we will go to the slide after about George Washington, of course. But so maybe we can start with the key role in the American Revolution that Lafayette played.
But I think his role was double. He had, first of all, a military role. And we know that he was really important in several campaigns, and of course in Yorktown, where he personally contributed to the final victory. We also have his role in. He also has, a role in diplomacy. And when we look at his life, we can see that after his first trip to the US, when he came back, he contributed very strongly to make people conscious in France that something was happening in the US. And I think is a key in the fact that France decided to go and help the beginning of this nation. And this is, I think, the most important, because when he left, he was just a young aristocrat from the country, rural guy, and when he came back, he was a hero, and he was able to share his experience in France, and to say that that there was something happening, and this was in accordance with the ideas of the Lumière. And this double role, I think, is not, we can divide it. And I will take the fact that he, after coming back the first time, he went back to the US. And I was talking about his constance. I think this is also a symbol of his perseverance in his fight for American patriots.
And of course, he also really secured that the sending of the army that would finally win Yorktown with him.
Yes.
So that's very important. That's, of course, my research I need to mention. And so one of the key, we can go to the next. So here you can see, of course, the evolution of the man, but then the next slide will go to the, here, George Washington, of course. So one of the most famous things about Lafayette is that he was as close as he was to George Washington, who considered him in a way sort of a son that he never had, and vice versa, the father that Lafayette has never had. Can you expand a bit on that relationship and explain to us what's on the slide we can see on the right? There's a very interesting document.
Of course, as you said, Washington was a father for Lafayette and vice versa. I think they had also shared ideas, and they were sharing ideas. They were also Mason, both of them. And this brotherhood and this fatherhood in arms at the beginning stayed as a real friendship and a real affection with a lot of respect. And what you can see on the slide is, I think, the double aspect also of the relationship between Washington and Lafayette. The document on the right is the secret code that we have in our archives in the Foundation that was used during the American War between Lafayette and Washington to preserve their correspondence from be taken by the British. And on the left side of the slide, it is I think, a moving portrait of Washington, because this portrait, painted by Lagrange fils, is in the personal library of Lafayette in the castle of Lagrange. And in this office, in this library, Lafayette decided himself whose people he wanted to have painted on the walls, and it was his closest friends. So there was characters from the French Revolution, like Malesherbes, the philosopher and lawyer that defended Louis XVI. But you have also Franklin, you have Washington, and you have also people who helped him when he was in jail. So all this little medallion, you can imagine that Lafayette, who was working every day in his library, he was working under the eyes, and it was those eyes, like the family eyes he had in his bedroom. It was all his friends, and I think it's quite representative of what Lafayette was. He was not only a man alone with his glory. He was someone who had multiple friends, who was really loyal again with his relationships. And this portrait of Washington with this look very straight toward him is quite representative of their relation of truth and confidence.
Yes, beautiful. And so there's, of course, Lafayette comes back from the American Revolution and brings back ideas. the ideals, as you said, of liberty, equality, freedoms, the notion of a people that is supposed to be represented, that they can vote, all these different things is inspiring to him, of course, in a place that is a monarchy where he returns back to, and himself an aristocrat. So this is interesting. But of course, one of his main achievements, or where he's well known for, is La Déclaration des Droits de l'Homme, the Declaration of the Rights of Men. And we have the next slide because you have, oh, that's the American Revolution still. But so the French-American relations are important, but then sorry, there's a lot of slides that we don't need now, but here we go, his drafts. So he, of course, maybe you can explain how the draft was written, but especially what you have in your collection.
Yes, well, in fact, we have several pieces that reminds us that Lafayette was really wanted to defend the idea of liberty. It began even before the Declaration of Rights, because I was talking about Malesherbes, but he was, when he first returned from the US, he was linked with Malesherbes, and we have in his library a book written by Malesherbes and dedicated to Lafayette, in which Malesherbes is writing about the importance of liberty of consciousness, sorry. And he is talking about the liberty of Protestants in France to be able to confess their faith freely. And Lafayette was even sent by Malesherbes to meet people from the Protestant church, like le pasteur Rabot in Nîmes. And I think all this evolution, all this fight drove him to this declaration that took place in the beginning of the revolution, when the first assembly was meeting, and then some deputies began to work on a declaration, and Lafayette worked himself on a declaration, which was, of course, very inspired, thank you, by the American one.
Yeah, and, Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. Exactly, and so this draft is a posterior of the 1789 one, but it shows that he continued to encourage and to fight for these rights to be applied in France, in revolutionary France, of course, but after in the 19th century France. And he also worked on it, and we have several marks by his hand on this draft, because it was going to be published at the beginning of the 19th century.
And we also have an image after of that, like this La Déclaration, of course. And this declaration has had a huge impact on the world, and especially, of course, still with the UN adopting it and all these phases that it had.
And Lafayette himself, when he titled it, he said it was a Declaration of Rights for European Declaration. Yes. So he already wanted to share it with Europe, and he wanted, as he explained it, to make the link between the new world and the old one.
And also he adopts the first sentences of the Declaration of Independence, right, that Jefferson wrote.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think even Jefferson was involved. And all these, it's a very, like this could already be the whole interview, but it is so important to see Lafayette really as a vector of ideas, and to bring them to France, to bring them to Europe, and of course other places. But another thing he also did was he got inspired by the cause of abolition. When he fought in the American Revolution, of course, he also saw that that was one of the main flaws of the revolution. So can you expand on that?
Yes, that's a point of his life which is not very well known in France. In fact, there was an exhibition with Lafayette College in New York at the Grolier Club 9 years ago. It was in 2015, I think, and there was some very well-known French historian who wrote in it. There was a catalog but this catalog is only in English. And when you are looking through the books that historians wrote about the role of Lafayette in abolition program, you don't have so many things in French. So I think it's really an important point in his life, and it's an important point for two things. The first one, that he was not only writing on freedom and abolitionism, he acted, and that's really important. He himself, with his wife, and the role of Adrienne in his whole life is extremely important. With Adrienne, they decided to buy a plantation and to have a program to form and to permit to free the slaves that were in the plantation. And I really hope that this aspect will be developed in the next few years in French historiography, because he was also a member of the Society of the Friends of Black People with Mirabeau and with other great philosophers like Aberenal. That we know he knew, and he read his books, and we have still books of L'Aberenal in Lafayette Library in Lagrange. And this role, I think, makes Lafayette, as we said at the beginning, an actual character and someone that we can be proud of.
Yeah, all these different facets of the man make him much more interesting. And what you see on the slide is it's a map of the location Guyane, which is where that plantation was, of course.
Yes.
And that experiment was very interesting because it was about gradual abolition, right? So so what you said, he was not only thinking or spreading ideas, he was acting himself. And another way he spread ideas was, of course, not only to France or to other places, but mainly as well South America, Poland, Belgium, other places in Europe. So he was really a fighter for freedoms and fighting against inequality, fighting against tyranny, all these things. So you have in your collection two interesting letters or correspondences, not only letters, and paintings and all these different things. But the first is, I'm always bad at pronouncing this name, Kosciuszko, the Polish independence, of course, from Poland. So he was in the American Revolution and also went to Poland, sort of maybe the Polish Lafayette, but they were very close. So how is that reflected in collection and building?
And that's what is interesting in Washington, D.C., that on Lafayette Square, you have at the same time the statue of Lafayette, but also the statue of Kosciuszko. And so they are still close after long time after their death. And it's true that the role of Lafayette in defending the Polish patriots during the insurrection of Warsaw and after was really, really important. Today, as for his role in abolitionism, this part of his life is not as well known as his role during the French Revolution and the American one. And even in Poland, where I've been, where I was last year in the University of Warsaw, the historians seems to have forgotten it. And in fact, Lafayette was also a key person in protecting them. And I will take one or two examples to illustrate it. As for abolitionism, Lafayette acted, and he created the Polish Central Committee in Paris. He organized a lot of banquets to collect money to help them. As a deputy at the House, he made many speeches about the importance of defending Polish. because for him, as a defender of freedom, Polish people had the right to decide for themselves. And so, as in a vision of European freedom, he considered that French government, French people, so France has to defend them. And he went even further because he welcomed Polish in Lagrange, and the place in Lagrange, the fourth floor, as a Polish corridor where the opponents, the Polish opponents, were welcomed. They find an asylum in Lagrange. Level, the great Polish historian and philosopher, was arrested in Lagrange because Lagrange was under survey by the police. It was known as a place where all the oppositions were welcomed, and Lafayette was mad about it because after La Lavelle was transferred to Belgium. And Lafayette not only defended Polish people, he defended all the causes around the world. The correspondence in our archives shows that we have several letters with Simon Bolivar, for example, because he was good term with Bolivar. There was also correspondence with Belgium, Irish, with Greek, and so shows that Lafayette was always working, always writing. I don't know how many letters he wrote per day, but it's enormous. So he was not only Cincinnatus in Lagrange, in his farm and making agriculture. No, he stayed until the end of his life, someone who defended the oppressed. And that's really important.
Yeah, and it's interesting indeed that that's quite forgotten. But another thing that's not that forgotten is, of course, he played a role in the French Revolution, which started quite good, ended very bad. Can you explain that side? And especially, so there will be some slides going back and forth, but here you can see him. So he started, of course, and then...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's this period is for him, I think, quite traumatizing. We historians used to say that Lafayette invented the just middle, the balanced position. And he said himself that, well, the middle was not to say when someone say 4 plus 4, it's 8, and someone say 4 plus 4, it's 10. The middle is not to say 4 plus 4, it's 9. No, the middle is to try to be closest as possible to the truth. And I think that is what he tried to do during the revolution. He knew himself that France was not, as America, ready to become a republic. He was a republican, but he knew that, told it that French chiefs were not ready for that. And so he tried always to avoid violence, to avoid excess. And at the beginning of the revolution, as deputy, he was in the main, among the main deputies that voted for the abolition of the privileges. He wrote, as we said, a project of Declaration of Rights. And after he was named General of the National Guard. He was there in the middle, but it was a difficult middle because he was supposed to keep the revolution going. He was between the people, he was between government, he was between the king, and he was supposed to keep the authority of the assembly, and also he was so sometimes against the people, and also he was also the National Guard was constituted by people. And you can say that after he was accused of being a traitor because he was named general in the French Revolutionary Army, sorry, and he decided to pass to Holland to avoid to be killed. Mm-hmm. But it's not weakness. It means that when he was in the National Guard, it was himself he put himself in danger. And when he was in the army, it was exactly the same. If he had stayed at the head of the army, he would be surely guillotined, and he knew that. And when he passed the frontier, he said that he was not an immigrant, so he was not joining the nobility, but he wanted to go to a neutral country. And the fact is, he was imprisoned.
Yeah, with the slide.
And this, can you imagine, five years in jail?
That's where it
yes,
looks
this
like.
is Olmutz. Yeah. He began to be in Magdeburg. He changed several jails, and during 5 years he was jailed. He had no contact with anybody. The jailkeeper told him that he won't have any letters from his family or anything. He was only known by a number. He was number 2, and they took him his watch. They took him his clothes, and he was really traumatized by that. Happily, his family, his wife Adrienne and his 2 daughters, went to join him and to share jail with him the last 2 years. But when he was free from jail, he began to put order in his archives, and he was tempted by the idea of doing like Washington did, and only to be the Cincinnatus of Lagrange. But quickly, he knew that he would have to go back to public life. Mm-hmm.
So we will talk about public life in the farewell tour a bit after, but I think it's a good bridge to go to the Fondation Chambrun, because Lafayette, after his imprisonment, of course, went there. This is where he started to live with his wife, Adrienne, and it was her family's estate, right? So we're going to just skip these slides. I'm sorry for this chaos, but there will be more later. So yeah, because I feel Fondation Chambrun needs some attention now. And so this is the way the castle looked, which is of course a beautiful, I think it was 13th century château. So I'd like to talk a bit more about the château itself first, but also why is this called Fondation Chambrun? What's the story? But then let's also, especially what you just said, he was organizing his archive. How is that reflected in this castle?
Well, the Fondation Chambrun is named after René de Chambrun and his wife Josette Chambrun. René de Chambrun, the Count of Chambrun, was a descendant of the Lafayette family. He was a descendant from the Lasteyrie family, so from Virginie, who married Louis de Lasteyrie.
So Virginie is his daughter.
Is the daughter of Lafayette, yes. And in the beginning of the 20th century, René de Chambrun was linked with his cousin, Louis de Lasteyrie III. And Louis de Lasteyrie III was living at the end of his life in one room of the castle next to the kitchen because it was heated. Yeah. And it did not have too much money. And so René de Chambrun and Josette Chambrun proposed to buy the castle, and Louis III de Lasteyrie said, well, okay, and he gave them this castle. And so when René de Chambrun and José arrived in the castle, it was like an archaeological field, because during more than 1 century, Lafayette, his family, his grandson, granddaughters, they stayed there, they lived there. So there was several pieces of history of different families that were superposed. And René de Chambrun, you can see his image in the attic. When he had the foundation in 1955, he discovered, but it was never really forgotten, but he discovered again all the archives of Lafayette in the attic. And I really like this picture because you can imagine the loneliness of René de Chambrun, but also his surprise in front of all these archives. And so that's why René de Chambrun decided to, and José Chambrun decided to create a foundation to protect this heritage, because in fact it was like an ecosystem, a Lafayette ecosystem in Lagrange, where all his collection, all his objects, all the furniture and the archives were. And he spent the rest of his life with his wife to make conservation program in the castle, to make archival, to maintain the castle with a roof, with the walls, with the windows, not to be a ruin. And that's what we want and what we are going to do, and what we continue to do in the foundation nowadays, is to keep this heritage safe and to transmit it, because that's also the principal objective of the foundation, is to transmit this heritage that is really upon us and that will pass by us. And so here you have the library of Lafayette, where you can see you have everything. You have the medallion of Washington and the other he wanted. You have the furniture. You have his chair of his desk where he was working. Even the desk means something, because it's a special desk that can be
lifted open, because
he had a bad ankle.
Oh, yes.
And he had problem with his leg, so the desk was specially designed for him. And you have all the books. And when you look at the catalog of the library, when you look and when you open the books, you have all the books dedicated, but you have also what was in the mind of Lafayette, what was his education. So from the books dedicated to constitutional objects, from the philosophers to geography, history, you have all his life and all what was in his head.
Beautiful. You must be having a great time going through all these collections.
Yes, it's sometimes a bit impressive too, because he's everywhere.
And so you're, of course, we have already discussed some of the archives. You can see an image here of how the museum looks today. There's what I personally really love is that you feel you're actually at his home, because it feels not like a museum where you have all these different locations, but it's not like under glass, it's just all there. So it's really exciting. And so what is your future of your museum? Because there's now an image of the farms. So we will talk more about these farms, but what is your future project there to do?
Well, in the foundation aims at encouraging the work on the Lafayette period and on Lafayette actions in life. So we have academic actions. We will soon create a thesis prize and a thesis grant to help researchers to continue and young researchers and young generations to continue to work on these subjects. We also have a collaboration with different institutions, museums, archives, libraries, where we make loans for exhibitions. We have several projects in the US and in France. We have projects in Philadelphia with the Museum of American Noir. We have a project with New Orleans. We had a project with Williamsburg. And we will have a project with La Rochelle, the Musée du Nouveau Monde, with the National Archives in France. And for us, it's really important to share these collections because for now, we will never be able to open the castle to a large public. It's not possible. As you said, it is a 13th century castle. We have conservation matters, and we really want that visitors, it's only on invitation, only guests. We want them to have the experience of Lafayette. As I said, when you open the door, you think that Lafayette is going to come out. You have his hat, his dashboard, you have everything.
I remember the newspaper with his glasses on it next to his bed. That's good.
And one of the most moving objects is his last newspapers that he did not even open.
Because he died.
Because he died, and it's on his desk, but died in Paris, but he did not went back to Lagrange. And so we want to create a museum.
Yeah, the next one. This will show where it will be.
Yes, it is the farm next to the castle, because as you may know, Lafayette was not only a political man, he was not only a military, but he was also a man of the 18th century. He was really interesting in agronomy. He was really interesting in improving agricultural methods. And the farewell tour helped him. Really, I think we will talk about the farewell tour.
Yeah, after this, yes. We have to go to other stuff.
And so he brought back vegetables, he brought back cattle, he imported merinos, sheep, he imported black pigs, he planted a lot of pear trees, apple trees, not only to make experience, but also to feed the people around Lagrange. And he was an employer. He employed a lot of people from the villages around, but he was also a philanthropist. He gave money to create the school in Courpalais. When there was the cholera disease, he welcomed people in the castle to
recover, to
recover. Yeah. And so this farm was still a farm a few years ago, and it was Lafayette Farm. We have all in our archives, all the archives about this farm, and so we will then there to open a museum about the life of Lafayette and his fought for liberty, freedom, and democracy. And as we said, maybe we are thinking on it. We will try to show the different period of his time as the three portraits that we saw at the beginning: the Casanova one after Peel, the one by Weyler as a commander of the National Guard, and the last one by Schaeffer. We have an exemplar of this one in Lagrange, the first one, and the other one is in Congress at the left of the speaker.
Yeah, the US Congress.
The US Congress, yes.
Yes, perfect. So that can bring us back to the United States, because as Lafayette did as well. And so we have to go back through the slides. I'm sorry for that, but it will go to the collection, because we are right now in 2024 celebrating Lafayette's farewell tour, which has been kicked off in August and will last up until 2025, because Lafayette went back in 1824 under the invitation of James Monroe, the president at the time, to really commemorate the general, the only living general at the time of the American Revolution. There were some other veterans still obviously left, but he was the highest ranking. And so he was invited to reunite the United States for different reasons, but also to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the American Revolution. And so he was welcomed, as we can see on this slide, by a huge crowd. He was a real celebrity. Everybody wanted to see this general, the adopted son of George Washington. And so it became a public phenomenon. He became a real celebrity. He already was, but became even more. And we will talk about that a little bit, but we will especially go to the next slide to see that there's initiatives today, which is the Lafayette Trail. So you can see the markers of every single place he has visited. You'll realize that there's a lot of them, because he visited about 200 places in about, if I'm not wrong, 7 months or 8 months, anyway, in a short period.
And he was not so young.
Yeah, and he was not young at all. He was in his later 60s, which for today would be, you know, a bit like that's quite old at the time. And especially, of course, he had been wounded. He was wounded at Brandywine, but also fell on ice. So he had problems walking, which he had a cane. And of course, these 5 awful years in prison did not help him for his health. So he was not very healthy, but he was strong enough to do this tour. So we can see some other images. The American Friends of Lafayette are organizing many events now to commemorate this. This week in particular has been in DC, but also Yorktown, which where we both will be there. So you can see what's been done. It's a reenacting of all these events. And so I would like to go back to La Grange, of course, to see what you have from that collection, because 1824, he lived in La Grange, so he left from there, he came back there. So it's, of course, the place where everything is kept from this moment. So the first is an interesting, sort of chaotic written piece of paper.
Yes, it's Levasseur Archives. Levasseur was his secretary, and Levasseur followed him during all his scales during the farewell tour. Levasseur was already preparing a book about Lafayette farewell tour. And that's funny how sometimes people say that Lafayette was really hungry of glory. Of course he was, but glory was not in the 18th and 19th century the same as now. He was, with his education, made for glory because he was from a military family. But you can see by Levasseur work that people around him also wanted to show his popularity, and because he was part of a liberal party, and so he was a kind of flag for them. And we have all these speeches, we have all the newspaper articles. At each city he stops, Levasseur kept this. We have also the correspondence sent by, we have the original invitation by Monroe to Lafayette to come to the US. We have also the correspondence Lafayette sent to the people in La Grange, because he continued, as he was in the States, to think about La Grange. And we have, for example, I love these letters where he said that well, you know, the vegetable garden, we need to water it, we need to make a basin in the middle of the vegetable garden because we need to keep the water in. I will bring back some pears, big one, and we have cows that give some more milk. I will bring some to La Grange in the ship that will bring me back to France. And so we can see that we are in 1824, 1825, and there's still so much correspondence with La Grange and to the US, to his family. He's still thinking about improving things as an agronomist. He was also given a bear, bear in La Grange that he kept. I don't know if it was for a few months or a few years, and he donated after to the French National Museum of Natural History. So La Grange is full of this kind of souvenir. He also brought back some souvenir that was created in the US to welcome him. And at last, I will only speak about one piece of a collection that is impressive. It's the skiff, the boat of the American Star. Yes, we don't have the
image.
Yes,
no, that's okay.
Sorry for that. But the American Star is a skiff created in the New York Arsenal, and is now the oldest skiff conserved in the world of the New York Arsenal. It is so important that the Mystic Seaport Museum came a few decades ago to create a replica of this boat, which is now on display in Mystic Seaport River. Nice. And I hope maybe why not for the 2026 to display both of them at the same time, at the same place, maybe linguistics, right?
Yeah.
We'll use that.
And of course, Lafayette was also, because you described the agriculture, so reminds me, of course, of our friend Washington, who he was greatly inspired by. And one of the more touching moments of his farewell tour was, of course, his visit to George Washington's tomb. He had seen him for the last time, if I'm not mistaken, in what is it, 1784, when he came back. 1784, Lafayette returned to the United States just after independence, and he visited his father, Washington. Both knew this would probably be the last time. And so indeed, when Lafayette comes back in 1824, he goes to Washington's tomb, who had, of course, passed away. And there's a few different versions, but he was weeping. He had brought his own son that he had called George Washington with him. And so this is one of the most touching scenes of his entire farewell tour. Of course, also making Lafayette remember his role in the American Revolution, the sort of tragic fate of the French Revolution. And so we have some images of that moment, but you also have some very interesting, I think we should finish with that too tonight, because then we'll go to questions, but the objects that he got from Mount Vernon to bring to Lagrange.
Yes, he brought back some objects, very moving objects. We have the Cincinnati Order of Washington, the one Washington ordered himself, and this medal is described by Cloquet, who was a personal doctor of Lafayette, and who wrote a book after his death. And we have even the drawings of the interiors of Lafayette apartments, and we know that this medal was upon his bed. And so this is, I think, really moving, as well as the umbrella of Washington that was given to him, and which was a very familiar object, which can mean nothing to anyone. But for Lafayette, it was the symbol of Washington retired in Mount Vernon after a very important public life, and consecrating now to his family, and
under the shade of the fig tree.
Under the shade, well said.
Nice. Well, very interesting, and I would love to continue 5 hours longer, but of course we have to stop and go to some questions of the audience if you have some. But thank you so much for giving us a full spectrum of Lafayette's life and all the efforts you're doing. And I really hope you'll find all the support in institutions in the United States, especially to make all your things.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience. And I hope my English was not too bad and I was quite
understandable. No, it's great. It's probably the same accent Lafayette had. So
maybe.
Yeah. So are there questions of the public?
Yes, there's a first question about the very beginning of the slideshow about the Déclaration des droits. And someone is asking, when did the Déclaration des droits de l'homme, was added?
So you mean it was first Déclaration de droit and then Déclaration de droit de l'homme. Yeah. So when was that added? And can you see that on these drafts that you have?
I could not answer precisely to the question, because as I said, there was two projects at the same time. There was 3 deputies committed to make a declaration, and Lafayette made his own project. And the final declaration that was added in the first constitution, the Constitution of 1791. In this constitution, it was Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen. Well, for the anecdote, this constitution was not never improved because and not approved, sorry, because after it was the fall of monarchy. But in the National Archive, in the Iron Desk, as we call it, we have still the bronze épreuve of the Constitution, where you can see the declaration. But at the beginning, in my memory, it was Déclaration des droits de l'homme et du citoyen.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. But these things, of course, always evolve. So maybe one version and then another. So is there another question?
Yes, practical questions about the château. Could you tell us how is it possible to visit it, but also go further about where is it located in France? Because
oh, good point. I forgot to say.
Where, like, is there a village around it? Is it La Grange? And what else is there in the area?
So just making sure so that everyone hears. So more specific questions on La Grange. The obvious thing we both forgot, where is La Grange in France? And then also, how can people visit this? Is it located in a village? It's close to Paris?
La Grange is located around 50 kilometers far from Paris, in the eastern suburb of Paris. It's already the countryside. It's in the region that is called Brie, like the cheese.
The cheese.
And it was a really important place during the Middle Ages, because it was a place where traders from Northern Europe, from Holland, from Scandinavia, from Germany, came and meet Italian traders. And so it was called les foires de Champagne. It was champagne marketplaces. And La Grange was certainly built to protect these people on the roads. La Grange is really between Coulommiers, like the cheese,
yeah,
and Melun, like the Brie de Melun, the cheese also, and Provins, which was one of the biggest places of the Foire de Champagne. It's around 1 hour driving from Paris. Depends on the traffic jam, and the visit is only on invitation. Sometimes we have requests that can be made through our website. There is a contact formula, but as I said, normally it's only a group of 4 people, and so we are choosing people who want to visit in consideration with their interest with Lafayette, because we don't want La Grange to become Disneyland. We want to take it and to keep it as René and José de Chambrun made it, as a memory place. I would just add something. René and José de Chambrun never slept at La Grange.
Oh, okay.
Only once, because their car had a problem, and there was a mess for their cousin the next morning. But so it's really kind of memorial, and we want to keep it like that.
And also to keep the way you present everything intact, because if you would have larger groups, you have to put things behind all these different things. And
exactly.
That would be a shame. But you have the museum, which will be open to the public soon.
Yes, soon, and I hope before 2030. So in 4 or 5 years, I really hope that it will be ready, and we will work hard on it.
Yes, and you can eat brie and get champagne. So I think perfect. Even better. Next, if there's another question, no. All right. Well, this was very interesting. I think we all want to go to La Grange. We all want to celebrate Lafayette, which we can all do this entire year. So that's good. And thank you so much, Vincent, to come all the way from Brie land to us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presence.